Chapter 1921. Everyone, rest here for a while, Zhou Danjin said. Everyone consciously leaned against the walls and sat down. Here. Aber suddenly tossed a bottle of medicine into Yu Xian's hand. Yu Xian was taken aback. She looked up at the little stoic sitting across from her and snorted, mumbling as she smeared the medicine powder on her arm. She gave that guy a beating just now, so there were finger marks all over her arm and neck. He should give it to her. Aber also snorted and tossed her another bag of food. Take it and share it. Yu Xian was dumbstruck for a moment. She opened the bag and saw a lot of food and fruit inside. It was about the same as what Aber and the others ate just now. Yu Xian was happy on the inside, but she didn't show it on the surface. She picked up the food and passed a portion to He Wei beside her. For your instructor. Aber tossed 2 pills to Yu Xian as if he was throwing trash. Then, he turned his head and hid in Emolien's embrace, ignoring them. Yu Xian harumphed. Your attitude is bad. Your attitude is bad too. Aber turned his head to glare at her. When he thought of how he lost control of his emotions and bawled his eyes out in front of so many people, he felt ashamed. He quickly turned his tsundere little head and buried his face in Emolien's embrace. Prince Mo reflexively patted her head, but his gaze seemed to be fixed in the direction of the dungeon flickering with purple flames. Jojo, he asked softly, are you sure that Fan Chioha was the one who set up this dungeon? Of course she was sure. She recalled it when she saw that rusty iron door. Back then, when she was carried out of this dungeon by Omega Kotoku, she faintly caught a glimpse of it. Although her memory was a bit hazy, she wouldn't forget that familiar fishy and stinky smell until she died. She had stayed in this place for 2 whole years. From a healthy young girl to a monster with crippled limbs and skin all over. Of course she couldn't forget this place. Aber was silent for a moment before nodding and saying, I'm sure. Who's there? Suddenly, the Peony Fairy's clear and melodious voice came from the side. A palm wind passed through the wall. A faint shadow suddenly flashed past the end of the brick path. Aber was the first to jump up and quickly chased after him. Fan Chioha. Everyone immediately forgot about eating and drinking. They hurriedly put away the food and water and hurriedly chased after him. Soon, everyone heard the sound of fighting coming from the front. When he rushed over, he saw that Miss Chow and Prince Mo were surrounded by over 100 blue-clothed men with short lapels. The 2 of them attacked fiercely as if they were chopping vegetables and melons, aiming for the neck of the green-robed man. Within a short period of time, more than 10 people had fallen around the 2 of them, forcing the encirclement to move back half an inch. Everyone, let's go together. Zhou Danjin whistled and led everyone to surround them. Without saying a word, they began to attack. There was nothing much to say to these enemies who had appeared out of nowhere. Just go up and kill them. Everyone rushed forward and attacked the dozen or so green-robed men on the periphery of the encirclement. Their swords and sabers greeted them without any mercy. Fan Chioha, that coward, where is he? Aber asked coldly as he pressed a dagger against one of the men's necks. I don't know. The green-robed man had just finished speaking when he saw Aber raise his dagger and cut a line of blood on his neck. Chapter 1922. Before the man died, he looked at her in astonishment. This vicious and merciless little girl fell to the ground. Aber was ruthless and didn't waste words with these people. Anyone who said they didn't know Fan Chioha was sent to hell by her. Until she grabbed a young man in green with one hand and held a dagger to his neck. She said as usual, where is Fan Chioha? That person had long been scared out of his wits by her ruthless methods. He hurriedly said, young master, he's up there, up there. Go. Aber grabbed that person's collar and dragged him out of the encirclement like a chicken. Take me to Fan Chioha. Go. Aber pushed him hard. That young man didn't dare to say no. He nodded repeatedly and led Aber to a passage. But when his hand touched the wall, Aber threw out a thunder spirit talisman, which directly exploded on that young man's body. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky and struck that person, causing him to fall to the ground like a piece of dead wood. That person's entire body was emitting thick smoke. He rolled back and forth on the ground and wailed. He stammered, "You why? You." The little girl looked very young, but he didn't expect her to be so scheming. How did she know that he was lying to her? Auber raised her hand and stabbed a few needles into that person's acupoints. That unlucky person rolled back and forth, crying out involuntarily. He only felt that a terrible pain in the depths of his nerves was infinitely magnified countless times. From top to bottom, there wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't screaming in pain. He was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat. He felt like his head was being rapidly stabbed by hundreds of rows of needles. That kind of pain was simply driving him crazy. "You still want to play tricks with me?" Auber asked coldly. "If you don't answer honestly, I have hundreds of ways to make you suffer so much that you'll wish you were dead. But you'll still be half dead, half alive, and have a clear mind." The man's entire body trembled, and he was in so much pain that he roared back and forth on the ground. On the other side, most of the green-robed men were about to be slaughtered by Zhou Danjin and the others, with the exception of a few who were lying on the ground with heavy injuries and on the verge of death. Xiao Mu didn't waste any more words with the man who had been struck by lightning until he was emitting black smoke from his body. She picked him up like she was picking up a chick and dragged him forward like she was dragging a dead dog with large strides. "Where is it? Speak. You won't be able to find young Master Gong." The man finally revealed the truth. "Young Master Gong has already left with Vice Sect Leader. And you can't leave this place at all." After the man finished speaking, a strange twist appeared on his face. Auber pointed a finger at his neck and sneered, "You want to die? It's not that easy." Roar. Roar. Auber turned his head to look. He dragged the young man with one hand and pulled out a crow-repeating crossbow with the other. He aimed at the newcomer and fired 5 arrows in quick succession. The 5 black gold arrows pierced through the heads of more than 10 corpse puppets. The 3 little white dogs that had been obediently squatting in the corner suddenly started barking. "Let's go!" Wei Wei raised his arm and shouted. Everyone cautiously activated their defensive barriers and rushed forward to fight the corpse puppets at close range. Chao Dan kept reminding the students, "Everyone, be careful. Everyone, be careful not to get caught by the corpse puppets. Pay attention to your defenses. Pay attention. Enough, old Chao. Don't keep begging us to be careful." Zhou Danjin rolled his eyes and said. Chapter 1923. If the students don't gain experience, how can they grow? Let them charge forward and kill. Zhou Danjin kicked a zombie that was pouncing at him, then raised his hand and roared, "Students, charge. There's a large amount of points in front of you, beckoning you." All the students. But with Zhou Danjin's roar, everyone's spirits were roused, and they activated their defensive barriers one by one and charged forward. "Pay attention to your defenses. Pay attention to your defenses." Chao Yen roared behind them. "Don't panic. Group up in 2s and 3s. There's no need for you to play hero and fight alone. Old Chao, you can't be so cowardly. Do you still want your points?" Zhou Danjin couldn't help but complain. "Bah!" Chao Yen was furious. "Points, points, points. If we lose our lives, what's the point of having points?" The two of them bickered behind them as they slaughtered the zombies around them. Everyone slaughtered their way through the zombie horde, but they didn't even have time to pick up the piles of bones on the ground. Just like that, they slaughtered their way forward, and when they finally exited the passageway, they were immediately enveloped by a glaring light. Everyone subconsciously closed their eyes, but they didn't dare to relax at all. "Everyone, gather here." After Auber's cold shout, Zhou Danjin led the group of students and ran to her side. This was probably the main hall of the underground palace. The reason why everyone found it glaring was because there was a large circular crystal in the center of the main hall. The smooth surface of the crystal was currently reflecting rays of dazzling light, dazzling everyone for a moment. "Be careful." Little Fatty flew up and kicked away a zombie, then reached out and pulled Xian Xian. "If you can't do it, Everyone close your eyes and use your spiritual awareness to look. Although it was more taxing on spiritual awareness, in the current situation, with their eyes open, they couldn't see their surroundings clearly due to the blinding light. Stinky girl. Let's see how you leave here alive. The green-clothed man, who was on the verge of death from the lightning attack, barely managed to speak, his eyes full of viciousness. Woof, woof, woof. 3 little puppies pounced forward and bit that man's leg. Ah! The green-clothed man felt like he was about to die. Even when the 3 little puppies bit him, the pain was infinitely magnified, causing him to twitch uncontrollably. What a joke! He was already useless to this extent. Abba swung his arm and threw him towards the corpse hag with its fangs bared. The corpse puppet probably didn't expect that someone would suddenly feed it. It paused in its steps and suddenly reached out to grab the green-robed man's waist. Ah, no, no. Ah. Crunch. The corpse puppet monarch lowered its head and fiercely bit down on the man's hand, happily eating. When the other corpse puppets saw this, they immediately ran over with envious eyes and gathered around the green-robed man. It didn't take long for them to devour him. With a kick, Xiao Mu dragged the other people that everyone had tied up to her side. She then swept her icy gaze over the shivering men. Where is Clear Sky Faction's headquarters? No, no. Ah, my great aunt, this little one really didn't know. Seeing their companion die so miserably, the men in green were about to go crazy. They lay on the ground in fear and raised their heads with bitter expressions. They kowtowed repeatedly and cried, "It's really grand, Aunt." Yes, yes. We were blindfolded when we entered and exited the Clear Sky sect. Chapter 1924. Yes, yes. We only know that it's a canyon. We usually live there, and we call it Clear Sky Canyon. Great Aunt, every word this little one says is true. We usually train in Clear Sky Canyon, and the Vice Sect Master occasionally comes to patrol. Usually, we're not allowed to leave that canyon unless we have a mission. We really don't know where that is. Liar. Arbor kicked one of them in the face, sending him flying. He landed among the zombie horde, and a few zombies immediately grabbed his arm and tore him into pieces. Ah! The remaining people were so scared that their guts were about to burst. They sat on the ground, paralyzed, and almost pissed their pants. Do you really think I'm a child with no common sense? Arbor sneered. It's fine if you don't say it. Wait until I get someone to search your souls. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and she immediately turned to look at Emolien. Prince Emo nodded. Just as he was about to step forward, he saw one of them slap the top of his head with all his might. You really aren't afraid of death. Yuan Shurchen laughed. A streak of wood spirit flew out from her fingertip and pierced through that person's arm, causing him to cry out in pain and drop his hand weakly. I'll talk. In Shuntian Prefecture. No. Wuwang Mountain. Traitor. After one of them confessed, the other 3 pounced with all their might, wanting to beat him to death. However, before their hands could touch that guy, they were suddenly sent flying by an explosive shell. Pfft. A Clear Sky sect disciple spat out a mouthful of blood and said with a brilliant smile, "We've all been imprinted in our conscience. If we reveal anything about the sect, we'll be destroyed." Ha ha ha. No, but that's right. This is better than being eaten by zombies. Arbor glanced at them coldly. Looks like none of you are willing to take me to the Clear Sky sect. The remaining 3 shut their mouths and didn't say anything. Fine, I'll let you die comfortably. Arbor raised his hand, and a vast amount of Earth's spiritual energy converged into a large palm and slapped towards the head of one of the 3. Since you dared to attack me, you must have been prepared to die. Arbor said coldly, remember to find your enemies on the road to the underworld. It's that idiot Fan Gu who killed you. Puff, puff. After a few soft sounds, the 3 of them suddenly stopped breathing and fell to the ground. Under Arbor's signal, 2 students immediately flew up and kicked the 3 into the zombie crowd. While most of the zombies were distracted by the 3 corpses, the group quickly moved forward. Emo Lien leaped onto the large crystal in the middle and slammed her palm down. The crystal shattered into pieces with a crash. Without the flickering light in front of everyone's eyes, the light in the hall also dimmed a little. Suddenly, he heard an earth-shaking roar coming from above his head. His voice was so loud that it almost shattered everyone's eardrums. Everyone's hearts clenched, and they hastily looked up. With one look, he felt his heart sink. There was also a crystal ceiling above them. However, at this moment, everyone could faintly see a coiling and meandering object with a thick body slowly moving above their heads. Could it be that this was some kind of huge snake? No, it can't be the one we saw before. That. Chapter 1925. The huge commotion at Mount Dai Zong shook all of us down. Was it an earth dragon? A student stammered, his face pale and powerless. Everyone stared with wide eyes and looked up. The more they looked, the more they felt. This brother might even know the truth. Woof, 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 woof. The three puppies suddenly barked at the top. Everyone looked down at them helplessly, thinking that the three of them were especially ridiculous. These three little puppies were courting their own deaths. With their bodies, they probably wouldn't even be enough to fill the gap between the teeth of the one above. Woof, woof, woof. After the three corpse puppets had finished eating the corpses, they didn't come forward to attack Arbor and the others. Instead, they quietly retreated to the side, as if they were waiting for some grand arrival. Another terrifying roar came from above the crystal roof, accompanied by the ridiculous barking of the three puppies. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. They subconsciously leaned closer and nervously gripped the weapons in their hands. Looks like this will be our last battle. Zhou Danjin laughed bitterly. Just the pressure emitted by the big guy above was enough to make people feel terrified. Not to mention that it was separated by the transparent crystal roof. Woof. Woof, 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 woof. The three puppies rushed forward and bared their teeth at the crystal roof. Everyone was speechless. We're ignoring you. You three are really excited to bark. Arbor looked down at them helplessly. Everyone, summon your mystical beasts and prepare for battle. Arbor said calmly. During the chaotic battle with the corpse puppets, everyone had the same idea that they couldn't summon their mystical beasts. Apart from flying mystical beasts, most of the mystical beasts on the ground relied on their physical bodies to fight with humans. They had no advantage over the corpse puppets. But now, they had reached the point where they had no choice but to summon their mystical beasts. Mystical beasts appeared beside everyone. For a moment, their huge bodies almost filled the center of the main hall. Fortunately, the space in the main hall was very large. Even if there were so many corpse puppets eyeing them covetously, it was enough for them to stay. After Qi Xian and the others summoned their mythical beasts, they hurriedly summoned their summoned beasts as well. At this moment, the sound of crystal cracking could be heard from the crystal ceiling above them. Dao Wuji laughed. I didn't think that I would be able to meet an adult saint beast in such a small crappy mountain. My luck is really good. When everyone heard Dao Wuji's words, their hearts sank. Saint beast? These students had almost never seen a holy beast in their entire lives. After all, they had only seen holy beasts in books. Who would have thought that he would be able to feast his eyes today? He didn't know if he was unlucky or extremely lucky. Everyone couldn't help but smile bitterly as they looked at each other with bitter expressions. Prince Mo turned to look at instructor Wei Wei. Bring everyone back. Pay attention to your surroundings. You guys are in charge of dealing with the corpse puppets. You don't have to worry about the rest. Arbor also had the same idea. Letting a group of little spirit masters go up against a sacred beast was definitely courting death. Moreover, there were many students among them who couldn't even afford to equip themselves with spirit beasts. They were all just Xian beasts. Xian, fatty, pay attention to your defenses. Be careful. The students from the other academies all said. Chapter 1926. The instructor from Honghu Academy nodded at Arbor and the others. They had been on the same team for a long time. If he still couldn't see the abnormality in Arbor and Emolien's group, then he was really blind. Ga. Bang. The crystal ceiling above them finally cracked. Woof 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 woof. To everyone's surprise, it wasn't Emolien, Yuan Shurchen, or little Tai Sui who made the first move. Instead, the three puppies pounced with all their might and opened their mouths to bite the giant tail hanging in the air. The giant tail was covered in dense scales, so thick that it was frightening. Even so, the three puppies, who probably hadn't even grown their teeth yet, bit off several scales and spat out a few mouthfuls. Everyone was stunned. Arbor also raised her eyebrows in surprise. She looked up and down at the puppies who landed on the ground, rolled together, and continued to bark at the giant tail hanging in the air. The curled scaled tail hung down, and it was actually dozens of meters long. It crashed to the ground with a boom, and the crystal fragments were swept away. Defend! Zhou Danjin shouted in a deep voice. Everyone began to circulate the spiritual energy in their bodies, and each of them activated their defensive barriers to the limit. Only to hear a series of fine duck 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 sounds, the crystal shards that were flying towards them were all blocked by the defensive barrier. Even so, the students who were protected by the instructors still felt the blood in their chests surge, and their bodies swayed. Bam! The entire crystal ceiling fell, and the figure of a giant beast appeared completely in front of everyone. It had two ferocious heads that resembled a dragon. Its coiled body was entwined together, and its entire body was covered in thick scales from its head to its tail. In particular, there were rows of barbs growing from the scales on its neck. It looked very frightening. Dao Wuji's face twitched, and he couldn't help but cry out, "A twin-headed dragon." There was actually a twin-headed dragon hidden in the tiny Dai sect mountain of Poland Prefecture? What kind of logic was this? Woof. Woo. The three puppies bared their teeth and formed a triangular formation. They lay dormant for a moment, and when Arbor's eyelids twitched, they suddenly barked and jumped up, opening their mouths to bite the two-headed dragon's neck. F***CK, this is too fierce. Everlasting Blade suddenly felt that he was inferior to the three little puppies. Go back. Before Arbor could finish his sentence, he saw the three dogs pounce on the two-headed flood dragon's body and bite its neck. The two-headed flood dragon was in pain. It shook its body violently and sent the three puppies flying. Woo! Woo! The puppies bared their teeth and rolled around on the ground. When they stood up and shook off their white fur, everyone was surprised to find that the three puppies were completely fine. They even opened their mouths and spat out a few scales. It must have been bitten off from the two-headed flood dragon's neck. Everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone looked at Arbor strangely. Arbor was naturally also dumbfounded. He looked suspiciously at the three barking puppies. At this moment, no one would think of them as ordinary puppies. Which puppies were so arrogant that they could fight the two-headed flood dragon? And they could even tear off the scales and barbs from the holy beast's neck in one bite? This is God, dog, right? The sixth watch ended. The author was very busy in the last 2 days. If he didn't update at this time tomorrow, it would probably be late at night. Saturday will return to normal. Chapter 1927. This was definitely a divine dog. Otherwise, how could it have the strength to deal with the two-headed flood dragon? At this moment, everyone was ridiculing Xiao Mu in their hearts, and their gazes toward her became increasingly strange. Are you still human? You casually took in 3 little puppies along the way, and they turned out to be just as abnormal as you. Compared to the others, Qi Xianxian, Little Fatty, Duanmu Qing, and Mata, who had teamed up with Miss Chow along the way, were clearly much calmer. It was fine, they would get used to it in the future. In any case, they were all used to being provoked by Jojo. Such a small matter couldn't cause any ripples in their hearts. Wasn't it just a divine dog? Jojo even had a Bloodfire Phoenix by his side. So what was a divine dog? Actually, Little Fatty and the others weren't as calm as they appeared on the surface. Each of them was silently cursing in their hearts. Arba glanced at the three little puppies in a daze, then raised his head to look at Emolien. What's going on? Even with this old man's eyesight, I can't tell where these three came from, little Tai Sui said in an old-fashioned manner. Confusion flashed through his cold silver eyes. Arba immediately turned to look at him. As Prince Mo's mouth twitched, Arba stepped in front of little Tai Sui and looked down at him. He reached out to push little Tai Sui's forehead. You're just a child, why are you pretending to be old? Dao Wuji. Little Tai Sui's slightly pale face immediately flushed red. His little finger trembled as he pointed at Arba. You. This old man is so angry. Does this little girl think I'm 8 or 9 years old? Arba ignored him and turned to look at the three little puppies. In a flash, the three little puppies had already fought with the two-headed flood dragon in the center of the hall no less than several times. Woo! The little white puppy in the middle bared its teeth and glared at the two-headed flood dragon. A strange green light suddenly flashed through the depths of its eyes. Its speed immediately increased by several times, and with a whoosh, it pounced at the two-headed flood dragon. The other two naturally did not want to be outdone. Their fur stood on end as they followed the little white dog in front and pounced forward. Like three small cannons, they rammed into the body of the two-headed flood dragon. A woo! It bit its lower abdomen. Hiss hiss. The two-headed flood dragon's entire body was knocked to the left, and its exposed lower abdomen was bitten by the little puppy. It was in so much pain that it couldn't help but twist its body. The flood dragon's tail suddenly swept towards the little puppy's body. Careful! Arba's heart skipped a beat. At the same time, Yuan Shichen and Emolien charged towards the two-headed flood dragon as fast as lightning. The black moon sword turned into a streak of light and flew towards the two-headed flood dragon's head. At the same time, the wooden thorns planted by Shichen also sprouted out from under the two-headed flood dragon's body, wrapping the twisting body of the two-headed flood dragon. The three little puppies took advantage of the situation and rolled out from the side. Their fur was stained with a bit of black dirt. They turned around and angrily hissed at the two-headed flood dragon. Hiss hiss. The two-headed flood dragon seemed to be thoroughly enraged, and a faint purple lightning appeared on top of its head. Without waiting for it to fully exert its strength, Arba threw 10 water spirit talismans on top of the two-headed flood dragon's head. Bang, bang, after several explosions, the two-headed flood dragon's head was attacked by the water spirit talismans. The faint purple lightning didn't even have time to be released before it miserably encountered the water spirit talismans. Chapter 1928. When the two collided, a sizzling sound came from the top of the two-headed flood dragon's head, and thick smoke billowed out as if it had been electrocuted. The poor two-headed flood dragon was forced to swim backward under everyone's fierce attacks. It let out a violent roar, and its yellow eyes, which were as big as light bulbs, revealed the light of hatred. "We must kill it here," little Tai Sui shouted in a deep voice. This fellow had already developed spiritual intelligence. If it was allowed to escape with the seed of hatred, it would definitely be troublesome in the future. Kill! Dao Wuji laughed heartily with his large saber on his shoulder, and the wind from his saber pointed directly at the two-headed flood dragon in front of him. With a boom, the wind from the saber hit the two-headed flood dragon. At the same time, Fairy Ginkgo and Fairy Peony also made their moves. With Dao Wuji's cultivation in the spiritual venerable realm, he definitely couldn't defeat this adult holy beast. Even with the help of Fairy Ginkgo and Thin Tuchuo, he might not be able to defeat it. Fortunately, this two-headed flood dragon seemed to have gone through a great battle before, and it seemed that its vitality had not recovered yet. When faced with a group of shameless guys in the spiritual venerable realm and celestial venerable realm, even an adult holy beast would not be able to withstand it. It had already thought of retreating a long time ago. Unfortunately, everyone was not stupid. How could they allow it to slip away like this? Instead, when they saw that it had the intention to retreat, their attacks became more and more fierce. On the side, Zhou Danjin and the others were slightly relieved when they saw that Emolien and the others had controlled the two-headed flood dragon's attack. At this moment, the two-headed flood dragon let out a roar, which was like a signal to the group of corpse puppets, making those corpse puppets, who had been quietly waiting on the side, ready to move. Everyone, be careful. Wei Wei organized everyone to fight with the corpse puppets that were pouncing over. For a moment, only the sounds of swords and sabers were heard, and the roars of tigers and leopards were incessant. Woof, woof, woof. 3 brave and fierce little white dogs quickly rushed forward. One of them, unfortunately, pounced on the giant flood dragon's face, and with a fierce claw, immediately tore off the giant flood dragon's face and a handful of black scales. One of the giant flood dragon's eyes was also injured, and it fell to the ground on the spot, its body rolling back and forth. Dao Wuji was very wretched. He took advantage of this opportunity to step forward with his saber and heavily slash at its tail. The giant flood dragon roared miserably. Its tail, which was almost broken, struggled to free itself and sent Dao Wuji flying away. Suddenly, it shrank its body to the size of a bug and tried to find a way to escape. Green light flashed in the eyes of the 3 little white dogs. Suddenly, they all pounced over and bit little Jiao's body. The Bloodfire Phoenix and the fat squirrel that were fighting the zombies hurriedly abandoned the zombies and ran towards the transformed flood dragon. Soon, Auber and the others saw a round, translucent Saint Beast core fly out of the flood dragon's body. One of the little white dog's eyes suddenly lit up, and it jumped up to bite the crystal core in the air. The other 2 were very intelligent. They pounced at the Bloodfire Phoenix and the little fat squirrel that were eyeing them covetously, blocking their path. The crystal core was about to fall into the little white dog's mouth. An ancient vine came out from the side and swept the crystal core away with a swoosh. The crystal core fell into Auber's hands. Everyone's mouths twitched. The little girl's face was cold as she said expressionlessly, "Stop fighting. Keep this crystal core for Qiuqiu's nourishment. Don't even think about it." Chapter 1929. When the little white dog saw that the fatty meat in its mouth had actually flown away just like that, it immediately became indignant. It bared its teeth and barked at Auber, looking like it was about to pounce over and snatch the crystal core in Auber's hand. Auber's gaze turned severe, and she coldly said to the 3 puppies, "Do you really want to fight me?" The 3 little white dogs simultaneously paused in their steps. At the same time, 10 Thunder Spirit talismans swiftly flicked out from Auber's fingertips and landed on the 3 puppies' heads with several whooshes. Everyone looked at her speechlessly. Those Thunder Spirit talismans abruptly took effect above the 3 puppies' heads. Rumbling lightning exploded from the talismans and enveloped the 3 puppies, immediately striking those 3 pitiful little white dogs until their fur turned green and black, and they pitifully whimpered a few times. Dao Wuji couldn't bear to watch this any longer and covered his face with his hands. He didn't expect Boss's wife to have this kind of personality. She turned hostile at a moment's notice and didn't even give the other party any leeway to back out. Facing these 3 adorable little creatures, he actually had the heart to kill them. Everyone felt like they had no eyes to continue watching. Pitiful little white dogs, didn't they know the story of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind? Woo! Woo! The little white dog circled around everyone's feet, looking somewhat miserable. She really didn't expect that the sacred beast crystal core she coveted for so long would fall into someone else's hands just like that. Woo woo woo! The little stoic expressionlessly looked down at them. "What exactly are you? Reveal your true forms." The 3 little puppies angrily barked at her, and their originally pure white fur turned greenish-black and exploded. Auber had already put away that sacred beast crystal core long ago and indifferently swept her gaze over the 3 little puppies. She didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. These 3 little puppies originally ran over to follow her with impure motives. Wasn't it because she fancied their strength and wanted them to deal with the 2-headed flood dragon? Perhaps the 2-headed flood dragon's previous injuries were caused by these 3 puppies? Although Auber felt that it was a bit inconceivable, it connected after careful consideration. She would be an idiot if she still thought that these were just 3 normal hounds. Since the cute little puppies were unwilling to revert to their original forms, then so be it. She didn't have the mood to be long-winded with them, so she waved her hand and said, Since the two-headed WYRM has been taken care of, you can leave now. These words not only infuriated the three puppies, even the crowd felt that Miss Chow was too much of a bully. Oh no, she was bullying dogs. Woo! The little white dog scurried to Aber's side. Seeing this, Prince Mo's face turned cold and he wanted to kick the three dogs away. Unexpectedly, woo woo, woo woo, the three black-furred puppies tugged at Aber's skirt and started sobbing. Everyone was speechless. Wasn't this too dramatic? The little white dog that had charged at the two-headed flood dragon earlier was now shameless for the sake of the holy beast crystal core. If the little white dog could speak now, it would definitely rebuke the crowd. We've even lost the holy beast crystal core, do we still have any face left? Aber looked down at the three puppies and expressionlessly took out a porcelain bottle from her pocket. She poured out 3 pills and held them in her palm. Don't cry. Haven't you heard of not easily shedding tears? This holy beast crystal core is for little Ball. The next time I get a holy beast crystal core, I'll give it to you. The little fellow handed the pills to them with a cold face. Here. Chapter 1930. Woof. Woof, woof. The 3 dogs immediately roused their spirits and hurriedly ate the pills. They rolled around while hugging Aber's skirt, feeling a trace of comfort all over their bodies. As soon as the pill entered his body, it immediately emitted a warm steam, and his 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt a trace of warmth. The internal injuries that they had suffered while resisting the two-headed flood dragon, as well as the fur that had been charred on the outside and tender on the inside from the Thunder Spirit Talisman's explosion, were all recovering at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Woof, 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 woof. The 3 puppies circled around Aber's feet. The little stoic said expressionlessly, "You can follow me, but you have to abide by my rules." The 3 puppies raised their heads to look at her. 1 bark means you agree. 2 bark means you don't agree. If you don't agree, then you can scram. Aber continued. The onlookers couldn't help but twitch their lips. The scene before them could truly be immortalized in a painting. 1 stoic face, 3 tormented silly puppies with drooping fur that was almost unrecognizable from their original white fur. First, you have to listen to me in everything. Woof. Everyone. Second, you can't go west if I tell you to go east, and you can't go north if I tell you to go south. Woof. Third, you have to give me all the zombie cores you secretly collected along the way. You have no use for these things. In the future, you have to give anything you pick up to me and let me distribute it. If I don't give it to you, you can't snatch it, much less steal it. Woof, woof. Scram. The stoic face turned merciless. Everyone. Crown Prince Amo instantly had the urge to burst into laughter, but when he looked at his wifey's serious stoic face, he felt that if he laughed out loud, it would definitely make his wifey unhappy. Hence, he held it in from the side, holding it in with great difficulty. Woof. The 3 puppies drooped their heads and crawled to her on all 4s. The first puppy shook its entire body, shaking out the crystal cores in the dozen zombie heads. The second and third one also followed up and did the same thing. They shook their small buttocks and heads, shaking all the fur on their bodies as they threw the small pile of crystal cores they had hidden on their bodies in front of Chow Mu. There's more. Miss Chow was expressionless. Everyone. Why did they all feel that the puppies in front of them were so miserable? The 3 miserable puppies shook their fur pitifully, shaking with all their strength, and shook out all the treasures they had hidden away. D. These 3 little fellows might have been the overlords of Dai Zong Mountain for a long time. Of. Chow Mu stretched out her hand and collected all the things on the ground into her storage talisman. She planned to sort them out when she was free and toss all the weapon refinement materials to Crown Prince Mo. Dao Wuji's face twitched, and he almost couldn't resist asking, "Why do you have so many rules?" To be supplemented. The little stoic said dryly, "We'll talk about it when we run into trouble in the future. In the face of all conflicts, the first rule must prevail. Understand?" Woof. Miss Chow finally nodded in satisfaction. We can go now. Bang 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 bang. Chapter 1931. Everyone turned their heads in the direction of the sound. The palace wall on the left seemed to have been chiseled by a sharp weapon. Finally, it couldn't withstand the force from the outside and collapsed inwards. Cough, cough, cough. Dust filled the air as a group of people walked in from outside the collapsed palace walls. All of them were covered in dust, looking miserable and exhausted. Aren't these people from Jiaqing Academy and Longjing Academy of Ani Prefecture? And Zhongguang Academy of Yunchuan Prefecture? Why are they all here? Instructor Liao, why did you all come from there? The instructors from Yunchuan Prefecture's Shuangfeng Academy naturally recognized Zhongguang Academy of Yunchuan Prefecture. They hurried forward and greeted Instructor Liao. Ah, it's Instructor Su. It's great to see you all. Instructor Liao was about to cry when he saw the familiar Instructor Su. Not only was he covered in dust, but he was also not in good spirits. As for the teams formed by the other academies, they were basically in the same unfortunate situation. Chow, Miss Chow? A surprised voice reached Aba's ears. Chow Mu looked up and saw the tall and slender Bai Xia striding toward her with a hearty smile. She cupped her hands and asked, "Do you still recognize me, Miss Chow?" Aba saw that her clothes were wrinkled, but she looked fine. She nodded and said, "You're Bai Xia. Where are your companions?" "Ah, they're behind. Bai Zhe, Ji Feng, come here." Bai Xia waved at her younger brother and fiancé. The two of them walked over quickly. They looked more haggard than Bai Xia. Their clothes were also tattered, as if they had crawled out of a rat hole. "Sister." Bai Zhe glanced at Bai Xia in embarrassment. It wasn't like he hadn't seen Miss Chow. It was just that he didn't have the face to see her in his current state. "Brat, what sister? Hurry up and greet Miss Chow." Bai Xia glared at Bai Zhe. "Greetings, Miss Chow." Bai Zhe scratched his head, revealing his two front teeth. Before he could smile, a cold glare from Miss Chow froze his smile. F***ck. Where did this fiend come from? Just the look in his eyes was enough to send chills down one's spine. "Lotus." Chow Mu turned her small face and pulled up Emolien's hand before pointing at Bai Zhe and the others. "These are Bai Xia, Bai Zhe, and Ji Feng from Siyuan Star's Baizi Kingdom that I met when I first came to Shuntian Prefecture." Emolien nodded slightly, and the three of them hurriedly returned the greeting. Bai Xia smiled and said, "Miss Chow, you found your companion?" Aba shook his head. "Not yet." However, Crown Prince Mo had told her last time that she didn't need to worry about Situ Yi and the others. If she didn't encounter them in this Middle Six Prefectures Academy ranking competition, then it meant that it was very possible that these people had directly gone to the upper three provinces due to some kind of opportunity. The Crown Prince had already sent people to the Divine Prefecture to gather information. There should be news back in a few days. "Why are you behind that wall? Don't mention it. Ever since the earth shook 3 days ago and we were jolted down from the ground, we've all been squeezed together." Everyone was squeezed into a long passageway, and it took a Herculean effort to get here. The Sunlight Academy has food and water. Everyone, prepare for battle. Chapter 1932. An ear-piercing scream suddenly interrupted everyone's conversation. Aber and Emolien turned around to look. They saw a girl with her back facing them, her pink dress stained with mud and dirt. She was speaking passionately to the students beside her. "Now is not the time for us to be apprehensive. We won't be able to survive. Since we can't come to an agreement with the people from Sunlight Academy, let's just make a move." Everyone couldn't help but be speechless. This scene in front of them felt like a classic. Not long ago, student Uxin from Sunlight Academy fought with Miss Chow because she didn't give them food and water. Of course, the ending was abnormally tragic. Who would have thought that the tables would turn and the robbers would change? Because Sunlight Academy had a lot of food and water, they became the target of the two great academies of Ani Prefecture. Yuexin couldn't help but be enraged. Just now, they were fighting with a few zombies when a half-eaten apple fell out of one of the students' arms. In the end, it caused the people from Ani Prefecture's Jiaqing Academy and Longjing Academy to be envious. Not only did they not help them deal with the zombies, they even took advantage of the time when they were fighting with the zombies to steal the food and water hidden in their arms. Shameless! Yuexin angrily scolded. Do you have any shame? Casually stealing other people's things. How can you have the face to do such a thing? This time, it was the group of stupid students from Sunlight Academy who angrily rebuked the people from Ani Prefecture. The girl in the pink dress who was covered in dirt incessantly instigated the people from Ani Prefecture. Everyone, don't be afraid. We have more people on our side than them. Everyone, let's go and steal the food and water. F*CK, you bunch of robbers. Yunchuan Prefecture's Zhongguang Academy's instructor Liao awkwardly looked at the impassioned girl in the pink dress and couldn't help but say, "Fourth Miss Guan. This isn't very good." The girl in the pink dress with red eyebrows and green eyes shouted angrily, "Instructor Liao, if you don't want to fight, then take your students and shrink to the side. Anyone who dares to obstruct us will be viewed as an enemy." Guan Ying was about to go crazy from anger. From the moment they entered the underground passage until now, they couldn't open their inner worlds. They didn't have any food or water. Along the way, he had fought against the rat horde and the corpse puppets. His body's spiritual energy had been greatly consumed, and he couldn't replenish it with pills. His entire body was mentally exhausted, and he felt extremely sleepy. In addition, after 3 days, due to various reasons, he was so hungry and thirsty that he was about to go crazy. Seeing half an apple fall from the Sunlight Academy student, the hungry and thirsty people's eyes almost turned green. "Do it!" Guan Ying waved her hand forcefully, commanding the An Prefecture's men to step forward. Suddenly, he heard a cold and crisp voice. "It's you." Xiao Mu had already felt that this woman was a bit familiar the moment she opened her mouth. However, Guan Ying's current disheveled appearance was a bit different from her previous appearance. That was why Aber didn't say anything at first. He just looked on coldly as they made a ruckus. At this moment, she finally remembered who this familiar-looking woman was. She was Ani Prefecture's fourth miss, Guan Ying, who had led people from Jiaozhong Base to hunt her down and steal her Xuanji core. "Where is Fan Qiuhe?" Aber looked coldly at Guan Ying. The 6th watch ended. Tomorrow was also extremely busy. The update would probably be around this time as well. It wouldn't be too early. Saturday was normal. Chapter 1933. She remembered that it was Fan Qiuhe who had brought this woman to Jiaozhong Base to cause trouble for her. Speaking of which, perhaps the two of them were quite close? What Fan Qiuhe? Guan Ying's expression turned extremely ugly in an instant. She also recalled that she had once hunted down this damned girl Aber in the lower star field. That hunt had simply turned into the biggest joke in the world. She had brought Honorary Officer Zhao to Jiaozhong Base to hunt down this woman, wanting to snatch the Xuanji core from her. However, in the end, none of the people she had brought were spared. They were all killed by this damned girl in front of her. As for her, she had wasted several teleportation talismans and had only managed to escape with great difficulty. Now that she thought about it, she felt that it had been extremely dangerous. Aber looked coldly at Guan Ying. As expected of a habitual bandit. "You want to snatch everything you see." Guan Ying's pretty face reddened as she glared fiercely at Aber. Suddenly, she pointed at her and turned to the Ani Prefecture people beside her. "Everyone, attack together. This woman has the rare treasure Xuanji core on her. As long as we kill her together, we can take out the Xuanji core and share it. We'll be able to recover our spiritual power immediately." What? Fourth young Mistress Guan, are you serious? Of course. Guan Ying nodded resolutely. Guan Ying, you're not making up an excuse to coax us into attacking, are you? Believe it or not, it's up to you. In any case, Every word I say is absolutely true. Guan Ying said angrily. Whoosh! A cluster of flames instantly flew in front of Guan Ying. In the nick of time, Guan Ying rolled on the ground and dodged. She turned her head to look at the deep pit that had been burned into the ground, her face faintly pale. When she looked up, she noticed a cold-faced man in black standing beside the damned girl. That man was extremely good-looking. At this moment, his phoenix eyes were slightly raised as he coldly looked at her, as if he was looking at a corpse. It made her feel cold all over for no reason, and she couldn't be bothered to appreciate the beauty in front of her. The Ani Prefecture people were incited by Guan Ying, and their eyes revealed the light of excitement and desire. The Xuanji Core. It was an ancient legend passed down from the upper three continents. It was said that this Xuanji Core contained Senior Xuanji's entire life's worth of cultivation. Back then, it had attracted the attention of many parties. But it turned out, the Xuanji Core was actually taken away by a little girl. Everyone looked at Arbor with greed in their eyes. Arbor wasn't afraid. He coldly glanced at them. One blue attack talisman after another slowly floated up around her body, slowly swaying around her. Guan Ying, today, you will die here with these idiots. Kill them. As soon as Arbor's voice fell, everyone around him moved in unison. They all pounced on the people from an E-prefecture, raising their swords to slaughter them. How could these an E-prefecture academy students, who had stayed in the tunnel for a long time and had been poisoned half to death by the corpse puppets, be a match for Endless Blade and the others? They were like little chicks, and half of them were killed in no time. The remaining people were scared out of their wits and hurriedly fled in all directions. They didn't care about anything else and kept running toward the tunnel they came from. Guan Ying, one of the An-E Prefecture Jiaqing Academy students, roared with red eyes. Only then did everyone realize that this woman, Guan Ying, had already slipped to the side of the tunnel where the battle had started. Chapter 1934. At this moment, she already had one foot in the tunnel and was about to slip away. All of a sudden, a furry tail smashed into her back. With a flick of the tail, Guan Ying was pulled back from the entrance of the tunnel and thrown to the ground. Ah! Guan Ying hurriedly rolled a few times on the ground and escaped from the little fat squirrel's furry tail. She looked over with a rare look of panic. The reason she had instigated everyone to attack together was to buy herself some time to escape. She wasn't stupid. When she was in the lower star field, she had led consecrated Zhao and the others, but they still couldn't take down the brat in front of her. Not to mention the people standing beside the brat now. She glanced at them and felt that they weren't simple at all. She would be stupid to pick such a time to fight with her. If she wanted to kill her, she would have to secretly find time to gather everyone to find her. Like now, she only had the students from Ani Prefecture by her side. How could she deal with this powerful brat? Unfortunately, although she had a good plan, Arbor wasn't a fool. He had already locked onto Guan Ying with his spiritual sense. When he saw that she was about to slip away, he hurriedly ordered the little fat squirrel to deal with her. Guan Ying had suffered greatly at Chirp's hands in the lower star field, so she didn't dare to face it head-on. A teleportation talisman appeared in her hand, and she was about to leave. She suddenly realized that the fat squirrel, which was the size of a small hill, was grinning at her strangely. She had a bad feeling on the spot, but before she could do anything, she felt a large, thick palm slap her back. At that moment, he uncontrollably rushed forward. Chirp! The fat squirrel danced with joy. Before Guan Ying could react, it squatted down and sat on the Guan family's fourth young Mississippi. Guan Ying almost choked on her breath. After a few seconds, she realized that her bones seemed to have been crushed by something heavy. She was in so much pain that she trembled all over and roared hoarsely. Her body was in so much pain that it didn't feel like it belonged to her anymore. Her bones, were they all broken? It was just a squirrel that was as fat as a small hill that sat on him. Then, he was F***king fractured all over his body. Guan Ying wanted to reach out and punch the ground, but she felt that the bones in her arms were so soft that she couldn't muster up any strength. Seeing this, The other students from an E Prefecture's Jiaqing Academy turned pale with fright, their lips trembling. Someone dropped the weapon in his hand with a clang before falling to his knees in front of little Taisui and begging for mercy. "Spare me, spare me." This lowly dog's eyes are blind, unable to recognize the heroes. "Please spare my life." Crack. Little Taisui didn't even bat an eyelid. He directly reached out and snapped the man's neck, casually tossing the corpse to the side. With a pair of silver eyes, he coldly said, "Shut up." Mo Lien and the others had taken care of everyone in Jiaqing Academy, including the few instructors with ulterior motives. Everyone turned to look and saw the little stoic squatting in front of the little fat squirrel. Specifically, she was squatting in front of Guan Ying, who was being squatted on by the little fat squirrel. "Is the game of hunting me fun?" Abba poked Guan Ying's forehead with a thin sneer. "How about we make a deal? Tell me honestly, are you familiar with Fan Chioha?" Chapter 1935. If I'm satisfied with your answer, I'll see if I should let you off. Guan Ying sneered. She wanted to spit on Abba, but when the saliva reached her mouth, it was slapped by the little fat squirrel, causing the corner of her mouth to twitch. *Tsech, don't try to get information out of me. Guan Ying said fiercely, "If my father knew how you treated me, he definitely wouldn't let you off." A few streams of water jumped between Abba's fingers, gradually turning into extremely sharp and long icicles. "Is that so?" Dozens of sharp icicles pierced into Guan Ying's shoulders and elbows. Each icicle pierced deeply, causing Guan Ying's entire body to convulse. "Ah!" Guan Ying. Abba's cold voice fell into her ears, causing Guan Ying to feel as if a cold current had brushed past her from the depths of her heart to her limbs. It was so cold that it penetrated her heart. "What's your relationship with Fan Chioha?" No relationship. We have no relationship at all." Guan Ying finally couldn't take it anymore and confessed. She lay on the ground as tears streamed down her face. She kept shouting, "I've said it. I've already said it. Hurry up and make it leave." Her body was pressed under a small furry mound. Just the pain alone was indescribable. Guan Ying felt that even if the fat squirrel moved its butt away, her entire body would probably be crippled. I only wanted to find out the whereabouts of the Xuanji Corps and find that kid from the Fan family to lead the way." Abba frowned slightly and slowly pulled out the icicles pierced into her shoulders and elbows one by one. "Ah!" Guan Ying continued to let out a few tragic cries. The pain of pulling out the icicles was even more unbearable than when they were pierced in. Guan Ying's entire body trembled as she looked at Abba with unfocused eyes. "Why you kill me? Kill me. You think you're very pitiful right now, don't you?" Abba looked at her expressionlessly. There was not the slightest ripple in his heart. Abba raised his head slightly and motioned for the fat squirrel to leave. Chirp. The little fat squirrel moved its butt and moved its huge body away from Guan Ying, who was almost squashed by it. Guan Ying's eyes turned cold. Just as she was about to struggle and roll to the side, a vine with barbs suddenly appeared out of nowhere. With a whoosh, she was rolled up and thrown out, heavily smashing into the wall of the underground palace. "Ah! Ah! Ah!" Guan Ying rolled on the ground, her head bleeding profusely. The zombies that were originally fighting with Qi Xianxian and the others at the side were very perceptive and retreated a little. "I'm so scared." This girl. Everyone also turned their heads to look at Miss Chow, who was emitting a cold aura from head to toe, and tactfully glanced to the side. "At Jiaozhong Base, if I wasn't skilled enough and ended up in your hands, I'm afraid my fate would be tens of thousands of times worse than now." Abba looked coldly at Guan Ying on the ground, his eyes cold. He hated these self-righteous people from the middle 6 prefectures and the upper 3 prefectures the most. They always acted high and mighty, thinking that they were naturally superior to others. As long as it was something they wanted, regardless of whether others gave it to them or not, they could just snatch it. In any case, those ants from the lower star regions couldn't do anything to them. Chapter 1936. Arbor stared coldly at Guan Ying, who was lying on the ground. A vine flew up and landed heavily on her body. "You can die now." Ah! Viciousness flashed through Guan Ying's eyes. Using all her strength, she spat out a round bead from her mouth. "Be careful." Emolien flew forward and hugged his little wife. In the blink of an eye, the divine power bead exploded in front of everyone with a boom. The entire main hall of the underground palace was shaking in this tremor. The palace walls and round pillars all around cracked and collapsed one after another with creaking sounds. This scene happened very quickly. Before anyone could react, everyone felt their vision suddenly turn black. The collapsed bricks, stones, and dust all came crashing down on their heads. With a crackling sound, it covered everyone's figure. It wasn't until a long time later that someone coughed from the pile of dirt. "Jojo. Xian. Fatty, is everyone okay?" Cough, cough, cough. "We're fine." Duanmu Qing coughed several times as if he had choked on a mouthful of dust. His throat was a little dry. "Don't panic, everyone. Slowly dig a path and gather together," Instructor Wei Wei said in a low voice. "Pay attention to the corpse puppets around you." Thump, 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 thump. Arbor kicked away a large rock in front of her. She held the night illumination pearl and shone it forward. She immediately saw the dusty little fatty and Duanmu Qing. Duanmu Qing hurriedly ran forward and anxiously asked, "Jojo, are you okay?" He looked her up and down. Arbor shook her head. Hearing the commotion coming from the left, everyone made a gesture of waving their hands. Fortunately, it was not the corpse puppet lord that moved the huge rock away. It was little Tai Sui, Endless Blade, and the others. Everyone should be somewhere not far away. Dig away a bit of the soil and rocks above. Let everyone gather together first, then think of a way to dig out, Duanmu Qing said. Prince Mo nodded slightly. This place should not be far from the exit. If teleportation array glyphs were used, there would be many uncertainties. If we end up being teleported back to the tunnel we came from, we might as well dig a new one. Little Fatty nodded. "All right. Let's do it then." 3 hours later, Sunlight Academy, Frostwind Academy, Honghu Academy, and the others were all dug out by Arbor. Chow Yun's face was covered in dust. He coughed a few times and cupped his hands towards Zhou Danjin and the others. "Many thanks." Cough, cough, cough. "What should we do now?" "I think I've found the way out. Now, I need everyone to work together and dig a tunnel." Mata crossed his arms and glanced at the people from the Sunlight Academy. "Is that okay?" "Of course." Cough, cough, cough. No problem." Chow Yen nodded repeatedly. The other instructors nodded in agreement. At this time, getting out was naturally the most important thing. Everyone followed the path that Mata had found and continued to dig the tunnel. The three of them dug together, and when they were tired, they would switch places with the other three. Fortunately, Miss Chow provided them with an endless supply of food and water. Everyone was very grateful. The beasts were huge and were naturally not suited for such a narrow tunnel. However, one of the students from the Sunlight Academy had an earth-drilling mouse, which unexpectedly helped them a lot. After digging like this for 4 or 5 days, they finally reached the surface. They could faintly see a ray of sunlight shining in from the outside. That's it for today. Tomorrow will be normal. It's time to sleep. Chapter 1937. Everyone was very happy, and they continued to dig forward at a faster speed. The dawn was right in front of them, and everyone was full of fighting spirit. Under the urging of its master, the burrowing mouse did its best to push the soil and rocks in front of it to the sides of the tunnel. Everyone moved very quickly. They didn't care about the various spiritual tools that they had treasured so much, and they used them as tools for digging. When they heard a dong-dong sound, the last piece of soil and rock in front of them was pushed away. Zhou Danjin bent his waist and crawled out of the hole. He looked up at the light flowing through the leaves and laughed loudly. I'm out, I'm out. He jumped up with a whoosh and landed on a branch. Then Wei Wei, Little Fatty, Qi Xian Xian, and the others also jumped out of the hole. Everyone came out of the hole one after another. They exhaled a long breath and looked at each other silently. Oh my God, after so many days in history, I finally came out of that dark hole. Zhou Danjin tried to open his inner world, and he couldn't help but frown. I think we'd better leave this Dai Zong mountain as soon as possible. Everyone naturally nodded in agreement, but they cursed the bastard who came up with such a preliminary test in their hearts. If it weren't for Poland Prefecture's Heavenly Bestow Academy, who strongly advocated using such a novel method for the preliminary test, they wouldn't have had so much trouble. Among them, there were a few students who had lost their lives in this place. Heavenly Bestow Academy was simply shameless. Now that they thought about it, they just wanted to gather everyone's strength and get rid of the corpse puppets on the mountain behind the academy as soon as possible. Ayo! A hoarse roar came from the side, and a lock of drooping rotten flesh on a face suddenly enlarged in front of Little Fatty's eyes. Mother! Little Fatty casually raised the double-headed hammer in his hand, which was still stained with mud, and hit the corpse puppet's head with a dong-dong sound. Everyone was shocked and hurriedly attacked. Countless amounts of spiritual energy desperately smashed into the unlucky corpse puppet, blasting it into smithereens in a matter of minutes. Everyone looked around vigilantly, but they didn't find another corpse puppet. It seemed that this was just a fish that escaped the net. Zhou Danjin heaved a sigh of relief. This place is lush with foliage and isn't suitable for flying spirit beasts. We'll summon them after we get out of this area. Let's get on our way. He didn't know if there was any danger in this place. It won't be too late for us to rest after we get out of here, another mentor hurriedly said. All right. Everyone nodded in unison and hurried to catch up with the mentors. They hurried out of Dai Zong Mountain. Whoosh whoosh. However, before they could take a few steps, two black figures suddenly landed in front of them. Zhou Danjin and the others were startled. They quickly prepared for battle. Taking a closer look, they were the two old supervisors that they had seen before. Only then did Zhou Danjin and the others relax slightly. Wei Wei stepped forward and cupped his hands. Are the two of you waiting for us here? One of the black-robed old men nodded and smiled with relief. You're the only ones left. The two of us have been waiting for you here for a long time. Now, please follow us to the nearby Heavenly Academy to rest and adjust. Wei Wei heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly thanked them. Thank you very much. Please. You've worked hard this time. The two old men nodded and turned to lead everyone away. Chapter 1938. The two elders were naturally familiar with the surroundings of Dai Zong Mountain. Soon, they led the crowd down a small path behind the mountain, which led directly to the back door of the Heavenly Academy. When the crowd followed the two supervising elders into the Heavenly Academy, they all breathed a sigh of relief. As far as the eye could see, the Heavenly Academy was shaded by trees, and the environment was excellent. Their nostrils were filled with a faint smell of fragrant grass, accompanied by a faint medicinal fragrance from the medicine tower. Now, you can see if you can use your mystic senses to open your inner worlds, the two elders said with a smile. Zhou Danjin and the others hurriedly tried, then nodded happily and said in unison, yes. That's good. The elder nodded and then told the crowd, in fact, in some special areas of Dai Zong Mountain, there grows a kind of tree that can block everyone's mystic senses and spiritual senses. We call it the shield tree. Previously, the double-headed dragon, the guardian beast of Dai Zong Mountain, fought with a strange creature, which caused the earth to shake and the mountain to shake, and the whole ground to collapse. Most people were evacuated from the mountain, but a small number of people, including you, were swept into the underground cave at the bottom of the mountain. The dean sent several elders to guard the entrances and exits, intending to bring you out as soon as they saw you. A few days later, the rest of the people also came out in batches. Only your few teams were able to wait until today for the two of us to see. Speaking of which, in 3 days, the semi-finals of the Academy ranking competition will begin. You came out just in time. Everyone suddenly realized why their spiritual sense had been unable to be used after they had entered the underground. Perhaps, in the depths of the ground, there happened to be something like the roots of the shield tree, which happened to be within its range. So, we've all passed the preliminaries? A student from the Sunlight Academy asked excitedly. The elder nodded to them with certainty. Of course. You've already destroyed the entire underground base of undead puppets. You're the only one with such a great contribution. There is no doubt that you all passed the preliminaries. Only then did everyone rejoice. Originally, when they came out, they were still secretly cursing in their hearts. At that time, they were too preoccupied with fighting and did not have time to collect the remains of the corpse puppets. There was no evidence to prove that they had killed so many corpse puppets. Hearing this, Abba poured out a large pile of bones from the storage talisman with a crash. He said expressionlessly, "Why didn't you say so earlier? She even had to clean up so much useless trash. It was simply polluting her storage talisman." Everyone was speechless. It was unknown who was the first to burst out laughing. Everyone else couldn't resist laughing out loud at once. Now that they came back to their senses and looked at this little stoic, they actually felt that she had lost some of her viciousness. Instead, she was infinitely cute and adorable. It was simply too comical. It turned out that this little stoic hadn't forgotten to clean up the bones of these zombies for them while she was fighting. Although she didn't say anything, she had considered everything for them. He was worried that they would not be able to hand over the bones after spending so much effort to kill the zombie, and their results would be erased. All the students cupped their hands at her and said with a chuckle, "Thank you very much." However, the little stoic abruptly turned her small face away and muttered expressionlessly, "It's not like I picked them up for you. You're flattering yourself." Chapter 1939. Fine. The little girl's tsundra disease was acting up again. Everyone smiled helplessly and followed the 2 supervisors to the designated dormitory areas for their respective students. Each academy was allocated a small courtyard. Although it wasn't particularly big, it was slightly cramped. Staying there for 2 or 3 days was no problem at all. Arbor and Qi Xianxian shared a room. The other rooms were randomly allocated by the men. Seeing Prince Mo's aggrieved expression before leaving, Miss Chow couldn't help but secretly laugh in her heart. Qi Xianxian tidied herself up and came out from the inner room. She dragged a stool and sat in front of Arbor. With a serious expression she said, "Jojo, why don't I stay outside and let your lotus stay here?" Arbor was flipping through the spoils of war he brought back from Mount Dai Zong. Hearing this, he didn't even raise his head and said, "No need. They should have already arranged the accommodations. They would only stay for 1 or 2 days. The semi-finals wouldn't be held in Heavenly Bestow Academy. Thus, after resting for 1 or 2 nights, they would be leaving for the semi-finals soon. I knew Jojo was the best. He definitely wouldn't choose a lover over a friend." Qi Xianxian was immediately revived and said with a smile. Seeing that Arbor ignored her and focused on picking out the items and putting them into other storage talismans, Qi Xianxian couldn't help but ask. Curiously, "What are these materials and the crystal cores of these corpse puppets used for?" "For my lotus," Arbor said calmly. Qi Xianxian instantly felt as if she had been shot in the chest. She raised her hand to cover her chest and pretended to shout, "Hey, hey, hey, can't you stop for a moment? Would it kill him to not show off his love for a day?" Arbor raised his little face and winked at her. "He's a divine weapon master." "Holy shit, it can't be?" To be honest, Qi Xianxian, had never seen a legendary divine weapon master in her life. Qi Xianxian hurriedly turned her small face and dragged a stool to Arbor's side. "Look, if you're free, why don't you ask your lotus to modify this low-level spiritual sword of mine?" Arbor glanced at her and nodded reluctantly. "Let's rest for a couple of days. He's been pretty tired lately." Qi Xianxian chuckled and nodded, Of course. Jojo, What's the use of the crystal cores in these corpse puppets? It's useful for people with special abilities. People with special abilities can absorb these cores to improve their abilities. Aba's hand paused as he picked up the cores. Come to think of it, she should be able to use this to improve her psychokinesis, right? Thinking of this, he kept a few small pieces of crystal nuclei, intending to absorb them himself. Most of them were stored in a storage talisman together with the refining materials. He jumped up and said, I'm going to find my lotus. Qi Xian. So what if you have a husband? Aba ran to the door and did not forget to turn around and stab Qi Xian in the back. Xian, if you take a fancy to any good man, remember to tell me. The little fellow said to her in an experienced tone, I'll keep an eye out for you. Qi Xian felt very angry. She silently watched as the little fellow flew away like a little butterfly, flying far away. Stinky girl. Qi Xian puffed up her cheeks and glanced at the little fellow's departing figure in annoyance. She thought to herself, Stinky girl, if only you were this happy every day. Previously, when she found those corpses in the underground prison, her frantic look was really heart-wrenching. Chapter 1940. Aba walked out of his room and happened to come face to face with Prince Mo. Here you go. Aba stuffed the storage talisman into Emolien's hands and expressionlessly said, Lotus for me. Emolien looked down at the storage talisman in her hand. When she saw that it was filled to the brim with corpse puppet cores and all kinds of refining materials, she couldn't help but be moved and pull the little guy into her arms. His little thing was always thinking about him. The corpse puppet cores she collected weren't for her own use at all. They were all collected for him. Standing off to the side, Limitless Blade, who was comparable to 1,000 candles, curled his lips and said, I used to have a dozen wives, and they also revolved around me every day. They gave me this and that to please me. Little Tai Sui, who was sitting at a small stone table and sipping tea, sneered, Then what about now? Umph. Dao Wuji snorted, Don't worry. With my appearance, it's not difficult for me to find 8 or 10 more wives for her. Hee hee. Little Tai Sui snorted disdainfully. For someone like you, no matter how many wives you have, it's useless. When your wives see you like this, don't say anything. Sooner or later, none of them will be left. What did you say? Limitless Blade blew his beard and glared. What do you mean by, I like this? How could I not have a single wife left? As the two bickered, Miss Chow turned to glare at Limitless Blade. Shut up. You talkative king. Long-winded. Little Tai Sui laughed and glanced at Limitless Blade. Did you hear that? Talkative king. Long-winded. Sigh, you two should stop bickering. Come, Limitless Blade. Have a cup of tea and cool down. Ma Yingchen sat at the stone table and pushed a cup of tea toward Limitless Blade. Seriously, little Tai Sui is right. What's the point of having so many wives? You might as well find a wife and get along well with her. Isn't that better? What do people like you who have never had a wife know? Limitless Blade huffed and picked up the teacup and drained it in one gulp. A wife is also a part of a man's strength. Do you understand? Just like him. Dao Wuji secretly pointed in Prince Mo's direction. My boss is a man of striking appearance. He should be an elegant and romantic person. It's not a problem for him to have 2 beauties in his arms. Sigh, but now. How are things now? A faint voice entered Endless Blade's ears. Dao Wuji did not know that he was courting death. With his back to the young couple, he kept talking, now. He was simply a pitiful henpecked husband. This is too embarrassing for us men. Oh. Before he could finish his sentence, he was kicked from behind and fell onto the stone table in front of Ma Shichen. Miss Chow did not say another word and gave Dao Wuji a violent beating. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal passed him a feather duster. Use this. Jojo, don't hurt your hand. Prince Mo shook his head helplessly. You asked for it. Little Tai Sui coughed lightly and picked up the teapot and teacup. He dodged to the side and poured himself a cup of tea. After taking a sip, he said, "As the saying goes, you can survive a heavenly disaster, but you can't survive a self-inflicted disaster." Oh. Don't hit me anymore. Hey, if you hit me again, I will retaliate. Return it. Prince Mo threatened coldly from the side. Dao Wuji immediately fell silent. He hugged his head and scurried around, crying pitifully. Chapter 1941. Hey, sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Stop it. I was wrong. Dao Wuji immediately surrendered. What a joke. If he dared to fight back, he would definitely become the target of Prince Mo and the venerable Chong Xian. He would be stupid to fight back. Alright, it's getting late. Don't make a fuss. Go back to your rooms and rest. Instructor Wei Wei's roar came from the room across from them. Arbor resentfully retracted his little hand, snorted, and waved his little paw at Prince Mo. Then I'll go back first. Mo Lien nodded. Only after his phoenix eyes watched his wifey return to her room did he retract his gaze. He turned to look at the bruised and swollen Wuji and asked with a smile, "Don't worry, after we return to the Divine Province, you can have as many wives as you want." For some reason, Dao Wuji looked at Prince Mo's unfathomable expression and shuddered for no reason. Why did he feel like this kid was secretly plotting against him? Dao Wuji extended a paw. I think so. As a matter of fact, having a good wife was enough. He. Prince Mo patted him on the shoulder, glanced at him indifferently, and then turned to go back to his room. Seeing this, Yuan Shichen sympathetically gave Dao Wuji a good luck look and followed Prince Mo back to his room to rest. Dao Wuji hurriedly turned to look at Little Tai Sui. Little Tai Sui, don't you think that boss's gaze is a bit strange? He said that when we return to China, he would arrange a wife for me. What does that mean? Little Tai Sui looked at Dao Wuji as if he was an idiot. Won't you know when you go to China? Oh. Dao Wuji thought about it. Little Tai Sui's words did make some sense. It was useless for him to fret here. Not only would it not make any difference, it would seem like he was worrying about nothing. Then, Little Tai Sui. Little. Dao Wuji watched as the little rascal left him behind and returned to his room without looking back. He couldn't help but look at the empty courtyard. With his head drooping, he pitifully walked away. After a night of rest, everyone felt much more refreshed by the next day. After working hard for so many days, Instructor Wei Wei gave everyone a day off so that they could do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to continue resting in the courtyard, they could stay in their rooms for the rest of the day. If they wanted to go out for a walk, they could go together. How could Qi Xianxian be idle? Once she heard that it was free time, she immediately pulled Arbor and planned to take a stroll around the Heavenly Bestowing Academy. We've destroyed Dai Zong Mountain and the entire underground base of the corpse puppets. Do you think we'll be rewarded? Qiao Mu was currently pondering something, so she didn't say anything when she heard this. She only regained her senses when Qi Xianxian tugged at her. She looked up at Qi Xianxian. "TSK, I've been talking to you for so long, but you've been daydreaming." Qi Xianxian glanced at her speechlessly. "What are you thinking about?" Arbor was thinking about Fan Chouha. What did Fan Chouha do to be able to build such a large corpse breeding ground under Dai Zong Mountain? Could it be that he was also a member of the Heavenly Fate Organization? If Fan Chouha was a member of the Heavenly Fate Organization, then everything that happened before seemed to make sense. Tian Yun, this evil cult, had always used humans as their research subjects. Chapter 1942. What Tianyun had been doing was simply to study the human body and create extraordinary experts. Instead of calling the nocturnal caw bird a poison, it would be better to call it a drug that radically changed the human body. Survival of the fittest, natural selection. In the end, after generations of spreading the powder, it would probably only cultivate the strongest person. Those who could adapt would speed up the change. Those who could not adapt would probably only become a foundation like a corpse puppet. From the looks of it, Fan Chioha's experiment on a small scale was similar to what Tian Yun had done. They were both studying the human body. Fan Chioha was probably only studying for himself. He wanted to obtain information from others on how to become stronger, including how to grow his inner world, how to strengthen his spiritual sense, and so on. Therefore, he had been nurturing his puppet dolls in that underground prison all this time. There was no doubt that Fan Chioha was Chen Yun's man. However, Aba still did not know who was in charge of Fan Chioha. The matter of going to Clear Sky Valley seemed to be imminent. However, the competition concerned Little Tree's life, so she could not relax. Jojo. When Qi Xianxian saw that Qiao Mu was keeping her head down and not saying anything, she didn't want to disturb Qiao Mu's thoughts. However, there was a group of people blocking their path, so Qi Xianxian had no choice but to call out to her and tug at Qiao Mu's sleeve. Aba turned to look at Qi Xianxian. Are we going back? Qi Xianxian shook her head. No. Jojo, look. Qi Xianxian gently tugged at the corner of her sleeve and pointed at the group of people blocking the spacious road ahead. The road on the campus of Heavenly Bestow Academy was quite spacious. There was no problem for 5 or 6 people to walk side by side. However, at this moment, there were a dozen people in front of them, blocking the road in a row. What do you want? Aba asked with a frown. A girl in green took the lead and stepped forward. She first sized her up, then asked, you're the great talisman master who can draw storage talismans, right? Aba frowned slightly. She sized up the girl and asked with a stoic face, What do you want? Sir, can you draw a storage talisman for me? The woman suddenly knelt in front of her and clasped her hands in front of her chest. She looked at her with a pair of pitiful eyes and shouted anxiously, I am willing to use spirit tools or medicinal herbs to exchange for it. Please give me a storage talisman. Aba was speechless. The little girl thought that someone had come to look for trouble again. She was puzzled in her heart. How could she have enemies in the Heaven Bestowing Academy? Please give me a storage talisman. The dozen or so people knelt down in unison and cupped their hands in a pleading manner. Qi Xuanxuan's mouth twitched. She thought they were here to cause trouble, but they were just a bunch of idiots. Sir, please accept our request, Your Excellency. Aba's face was expressionless. He looked up at the sky and pondered. Storage talismans take the good fortune of the heavens and are very difficult to draw. Understood, understood, understood. Everyone nodded and said, We're willing to wait in line. 1 month, 3 months, half a year, even a year would be good. Please don't reject us. What do you want? Just name your price. Aba nodded slightly. Then please wait for a moment. I'll draw up a list of items for exchange for you. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Your Excellency. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1943. Master, feel free to tell us what you need or what materials you need. We lowly ones will definitely, take care of everything, no matter how big or small. We will definitely help Master properly. The little stoic gave a deep, She nodded slightly with one hand behind her back. Everyone scrambled to take out the tables, chairs, stools, paper, and pens they had prepared beforehand from their inner worlds and handed them to Arbor so that she could draw up a list of materials to exchange for a storage talisman. Everyone held the list like it was a treasure and had a rough idea after looking through it. They planned to work together to gather a set of materials to exchange for a storage talisman first. The list will be changed once a month. Next month it might not be the same materials. The little stoic said aloofly, Find her to sign up and gather the materials within a month after signing up. Otherwise, we won't wait. Aba pointed at student Qi Xianxian, whose mouth was agape, and left with a flick of her sleeves. Everyone instantly surrounded Qi Xianxian so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Student Qi Xianxian looked dumbfoundedly at the little stoic who abandoned her and ran off first. Her small face was conflicted as she silently cursed. "You brat, are you sure you're not tired of running?" As expected, Master has the demeanor of a master. A female student from Heavenly Bestow Academy praised with admiration, "We have to gather the materials as soon as possible. At least one set of materials. I heard that the space inside Master's storage talisman is rather large." "Too awesome." Everyone surrounded student Qi Xianxian, who wanted to cry but had no tears, and chattered for a long time. At this time, Arbor had already slipped back to the small courtyard. At Prince Mo's door, she encountered Mo Lien and He Shurchen, who happened to be coming out. Miss Chow cheered and bounced forward. "Let's go. Didn't you go out with Qi Xianxian?" He Shurchen curiously looked behind her. "Where did you throw Qi Xianxian?" "She's very busy. As Master's assistant, she has to take care of some chores." "Master?" The two men glanced at her. "Which master?" The little stoic patted her chest. "Master Chow." Pfft. Prince Mo and the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal couldn't help but laugh. The two of them, who were familiar with the young lady's temperament, immediately knew that Qi Xianxian, this unlucky child, was most likely tricked by Miss Chow. Amused, Prince Mo reached out and hooked her pinky finger. "Let's go." The three of them left the courtyard and walked along a small path towards the Heavenly Academy's garden. Arbor couldn't help but shed a tear of sympathy for himself as he looked at the others' academy and thought of his own dilapidated top-notch academy. Although the name of this top-tier academy sounded resounding, in terms of facilities, architecture, and reputation, it couldn't even compare to a small third-rate academy in the 6 prefectures continent. At the very least, a third-rate academy would have a signboard, a gate, or something like that. The dormitories of the students were not like the ones in the top-tier academies, where there was only a small lump of dirt and nothing else. Arbor shook his head, only to see 3 or 4 students hurriedly running towards him, their faces full of excitement as they shouted, "Let's go, let's go, let's go to the ring and have a look. I heard that 2 senior sisters from the 3rd years are having a public duel there today." "Which 2 from the 3rd years?" When an excited girl ran past Arbor, she almost bumped into her shoulder. Prince Mo reacted swiftly and scooped his wifey into his arms to avoid her. Chapter 1944. The girl was taken aback. She turned to say, "Sorry," before her gaze landed on the 3 of them. These 3 people's appearances were simply too outstanding. Prince Mo, who was dressed in black, and the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, who was dressed in a demonic red robe, were simply heaven-defying, peerless, and unparalleled. In front of the 2 of them stood a little girl who looked like a little jade sculpture carved from ice. She was looking at them. The girl hurriedly smiled in embarrassment. "Sorry, I almost bumped into you." Arbor shook her head, indicating that it was fine. The girl smiled. Just as she was about to turn and leave, she suddenly turned to them and said, "You are, students from the other academies, right? If you don't have anything to do, you can come with us to the arena area to watch. The 2 senior sisters are having a martial arts competition there today. It should be quite exciting." Arbor nodded. The girls glanced at them again, then hurriedly left. Arbor pursed her lips. "I don't like to watch a show." 15 minutes later, the 3 of them stood in front of the arena area, occupying an advantageous position. Xiao Mu's eyebrows curved slightly as she watched the 2 women's swords crisscrossing each other on the stage. She exclaimed softly, "You're all classmates. What kind of deep-seated hatred do you have for your moves to be so sharp?" Miss Chow, who didn't like to watch a show, quietly took out an orange from her pocket. She peeled it and commented, "Isn't her move too fierce?" Ma Yingchen and Prince Mo were somewhat helpless. "It's a life-and-death battle to begin with. It's either you die or I die." "What?" Miss Chow's eyes widened slightly. "You can have a life-and-death battle in the academy? Forgive their academy for only having 8 students." Everyone was quite friendly. She had never heard of a life and death battle between students. Look, there's a life and death contract over there. Ma Ying-chen pointed her chin at a spot not far away. Arba looked over and realized that there was indeed a large piece of red paper pasted on the stool at the edge of the arena. The 3 words, life and death contract, were written on it. There was also the blood contract imprint of the 2 people. Miss Chow's hand, which was holding the orange, paused. She looked at the 2 young women on the stage and shook her head. What a pity. Ma Shurchen reached out and took half of the orange from her hand. As he ate, he said, "What's there to pity? In the end, it's all about fate. If they want to sign the life and death agreement, then they have to follow the rules of the heavenly Tao. Even if they don't die, one of them has to die." Miss Chow blinked. So it's only when one of them dies that the victor will be decided? Smart. Prince Mo nodded and took the other half of the orange, praising it. Miss Chow looked down and saw that it was empty. The peeled oranges in his hands all fell into the mouths of others. My master said that it's best to have something to eat while watching the competition. That way, one's mood will be better, Miss Chow suddenly said as she took out a banana from her inner world. You mean, Her Excellency Dark Phoenix? Prince Mo was slightly startled as he asked. Yes. You remember now? Emolien couldn't help but ask softly. Remember what? Ah, nothing. Arba shook his head with a distressed expression. It's just that I occasionally remember that Master said this before. You'll remember slowly. Prince Mo raised his hand and patted her head. At this moment, the victor had already been decided on the arena. It should be said that one of the women had fallen to the ground and died. Chapter 1945. In an instant, the life and death contract hanging in front of the arena automatically burned to ashes. Arba looked at the girl who died in the arena and shook her head. A familiar voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Hey, this little sister, can you tell me what kind of deep hatred these 2 senior sisters have for them to have a life and death battle in the arena? Hey, little fatty bro, you'll find it funny even if I tell you. These 2 senior sisters liked the same senior brother at the same time, and that senior brother was wavering between the 2 of them. In the end, these 2 senior sisters made this agreement in order to fight over that man. Wow, your academy even encourages male and female students to form partners. Little fatty bro, don't talk nonsense, of course the academy doesn't encourage it. Come here, I'll tell you this, you can't pass it on to others. Arba stretched her little neck to take a look, and saw little Fatty surrounded by 3 or 4 gorgeously dressed little sisters, going to the side to inquire for information. She suddenly understood why that guy Ko Hongjin of the Ko family was so jealous of little Fatty. Needless to say, although the little Fatty was chubby, his round and chubby face was quite cute, and he was very popular with girls. Little Fatty's popularity had always been good among women. Arba turned to Prince Mo and Ji Chen, saying, Let's go, we're going back. The excitement was over, and there was no fun in this crowd of people. The 3 of them squeezed out of the crowd, and not long after, another pair of male and female came on stage to spar, and the atmosphere in front of the arena was stirred up again. Senior sister Yu Gue, what are you looking at? Jiang Qi walked to Yu Gue's side and asked in a low voice. When she came over, she saw Yu Gue standing alone outside the crowd, staring blankly in a direction, not knowing what she was in a daze for. Yu Gue was slightly startled, and then she recovered and shook her head. I probably saw wrongly. Impossible. Let's go. And what's impossible? What did you see? Yu Gue laughed bitterly. When I came over just now, I must have seen wrongly, and mistook a figure for little junior sister. Junior sister? Jiang Qi muttered to himself and sighed. Junior sister should be 15 this year. Yu Gue replied indifferently. Although junior apprentice sister is talented and intelligent, she is in the lower star field. If she wants to come to the 6 prefectures continent, she will have to climb the stairway to heaven. No matter how talented she is, it's only been 3 years. It's impossible. That's right. Jiang Qi nodded. Senior sister, we also need to go back and prepare. Just now, the instructor came to inform me that we'll be leaving tomorrow morning. All right. Yugui turned around and said, let's go. Let's go back and prepare. This time, we must obtain the qualifications to cultivate in Spirit Realm on Brinset Island. This meant that each and every one of them had to enter the top 100 in the Academy's ranking competition. They had a blood feud on their backs, and they urgently needed to improve themselves. Time waits for no one. Only by working hard could they live up to the kindness and nurturing of the sect. Aber, Mo Lien, and He Chan returned to their small courtyard. The moment they opened the door, they saw the 5 instructors gathered in front of the stone table, waiting for them. Qi Xianxian turned around and looked at her pitifully, with a pitiful look. Chapter 1946. Duanmu, Mata, and the others also stood in front of the stone table. Other than the little fatty, who was probably still chatting with the big sisters, everyone else had arrived. I received notice that the people from Heavenly Bestow Academy will head to the venue first tomorrow. We from the other academies will head over a bit later and can depart at noon. Wei Wei swept them a glance. So everyone, make your own preparations tonight and have a good night's rest. Everyone nodded. Zhou Danjin glanced at them and asked suspiciously, where's the fatty? Why haven't I seen him the whole day? Everyone silently looked at each other without uttering a word. That's enough. You've been outside for the whole day. Rest early and don't cause trouble. As for the fatty, when you see him come back, tell him that you should all go back and rest. Everyone looked up at the clear sky. Strictly speaking, it was only the afternoon right now. However, Instructor Wei Wei said that they had been outside for the whole day and even told them to go back to their rooms to rest early. Do you want to eat a good meal tonight? Aber suddenly asked. When Zhou Danjin thought of the dishes that the little fellow brought, he was about to drool. He nodded repeatedly and said, yes, 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 I'll order a dish, beggar's chicken. I'll order braised pork ribs. I want winter melon. I want to eat prawns. Xian, this foodie, almost drooled at the thought of fried prawns. The little stoic expressionlessly rolled her eyes at them and harumphed, I'm not a restaurant, before trotting back to her room. Sleep early, you won't be able to digest if you eat too much. You. Everyone bit their handkerchiefs and hatefully watched her departing figure. They really wanted to gang up on this little fellow and beat her up. Why the heck did she suggest adding more dishes but not add more in the end? Wasn't she teasing them? Prince Mo waved his hand in amusement and returned to his room. When night fell, everyone sighed and took out the white steamed buns from their pockets, planning to make do with some pickled vegetables. They didn't expect to hear the little stoic's crisp voice. Aren't you all coming out to eat? Everyone scrambled to get out of the door and saw the rich dishes on the stone table at a glance. Afterwards, they saw that hateful little stoic, dressed in light green casual clothes, was currently sitting in front of the stone table with Prince Mo, looking at them expressionlessly. Xuan's fried prawns, Mata's braised pork ribs, and Senior Brother Lu's winter melon soup. Teacher Zhou's beggar's chicken. Wow, ordering food is really useful. Everyone gathered around him, feeling so happy that they were about to fly. Little Fatty slowly returned. The moment he pushed open the courtyard door, he saw everyone eating and fighting around a stone table. The chopsticks were like raindrops as they ate happily. He hurriedly closed the door behind him and rushed forward to yell, "Oh my God, why didn't you wait for me to eat? Who knows how long you're going to chat with those big sisters? Let's go, let me have a seat. Stop pushing. Everyone has a share." Aber looked at this group of people reincarnated from starvation and speechlessly raised his hand. Everyone, move aside. Soon after, he took out a wash-basin-sized soup bowl from his inner world and placed it in front of everyone. It was filled with spirit bamboo shoots and fresh meat soup. A dense aura of spiritual power spread out in the small courtyard. Heavens! Hurry and move aside, I'll have a bowl first. Little Fatty yelled and rushed to scoop up a bowl full of soup. He held the bowl and drank it while praising it incessantly. Chapter 1947. Hey, Jojo, what kind of bamboo shoots are these? I feel like my spiritual power is flowing away as soon as I eat them. I'm so full today. Who's going to take a walk with me later? Then why are you still eating? I'll digest after I finish eating. Jojo, I think you're amazing. You can have anything you want. We'll just take you wherever we go in the future. Yes, yes. We don't need to take anything else. Abba glanced at the little fatty expressionlessly. In your dreams. Everyone enjoyed the meal. Even Instructor Wei Wei, who had always been serious, showed a rare smile. Ani Prefecture. The prefecture master, Guan Zhaotang, looked coldly at his fourth daughter who was lying on the sickbed. Prefecture master. A middle-aged man walked in quickly and saluted. Fourth miss, why did you suddenly come back? The fourth miss of the Guan family represented Jiaqing Academy and went to Dai Zhong Mountain in Polan Prefecture to participate in the preliminaries. She suddenly came back with serious injuries, which surprised everyone. What a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang snorted. She won't amount to much. The middle-aged man, Qi Lianhai, silently glanced at the young woman on the sickbed. Guan Ying's original appearance could no longer be seen. Half of her face seemed to have exploded, and her skin and flesh were all exposed. His two eyes had long since turned into two holes, and his eyeballs could no longer be seen. It's useless to keep such a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang said coldly, dispose of her. Yes, Prefecture Master. Qi Lianhai lowered his head and responded. He couldn't help but feel a little emotional. The fourth miss risked her life and used her last breath to contact her family, who helped her open a special passage and ran back. In the end, she was inevitably treated as a piece of trash. Guan Zhaotang had 6 daughters and 3 sons. He was in the prime of his life and had many wives and concubines around him. He could have as many children as he wanted. Naturally, he couldn't raise a piece of trash to make things difficult for him. What was the point? If that was the case, he might as well die outside. Qi Lianhai shook his head. After watching Guan Zhaotang leave with a cold expression, he walked forward and cupped his hands in salute to the fourth young miss who was lying on the sickbed. My apologies, fourth young miss. Qi Lianhai reached out and grabbed Guan Ying's neck. He released a bit of spirit power from his hand and held Guan Ying for a moment. Guan Ying struggled fiercely for less than 3 seconds. Her kicking legs gradually slowed down, and finally, she stopped breathing. Qi Lianhai tidied up his clothes, turned around, and walked out of the door. He cupped his hands towards Guan Zhaotang, who was standing in front of the door with his back facing him, and said, Manor Lord, it's been settled. Do you want me to send someone to Polan Manor to investigate the situation? Guan Zhaotang coldly snorted, although little Four is a useless trash, she is still my daughter. Whoever did this to her, I will naturally make them pay the price. Yes. Qi Lianhai turned around and went out, immediately gathering people. Daughter, my daughter. A mournful scream came from outside the door. A beautiful woman wearing a small white flower on her head staggered into the room and grabbed Guan Zhaotang's sleeve. Master, this concubine heard that Ying has just returned with serious injuries. Can this concubine? Guan Zhaotang impatiently pulled back his sleeve. Go take a look at her for the last time. Later, choose a day to burn her. The woman immediately paled and fell to the ground. Chapter 1948. The semi-finals were arranged to be held at the Shanghua Gladiator Arena, which was the closest to the Burin Sea. In the past, the semi-finals and finals were generally held at the Shanghua Gladiator Arena. Firstly, it was customary. Secondly, Shanghua was outside of the 6 prefectures, so the referees at the Shanghua Gladiator Arena were more impartial. Thirdly, The gladiator arena's geographical location was good. After the competition ended, the winning students could immediately board a ship at the Buran Sea and sail to Brinthet Island. The participating students were all teams that stood out after the first round of auditions. Naturally, everyone's face carried a bit of arrogance. When Zhou Danjin brought the students from the top academies to Shanghua City, it was about noon on the second day. Everyone first made arrangements for their accommodation. The inns they chose were naturally close to the Shanghua Gladiator Arena. This way, it would be more convenient for them to go back and forth every day. There were quite a few inns around the Shanghua Gladiator Arena. During the qualifiers, all the inns would rack their brains to attract customers. Aber and the others found a relatively large Onping Inn and booked all the rooms on the third floor. This way, everyone could live more comfortably. Onping Inn also provided food, but the prices were obviously very expensive. After eating dinner, everyone unanimously decided that they shouldn't waste spirit coins blindly. It would be better to eat Miss Chow's food in the future. The next day, everyone was ready to go. Early in the morning, they gathered on the first floor of the inn, full of energy. Along with the sound of the stairs, several teams came down from the second floor. Some students curiously sized up Aber and the others. When they checked in, they had already heard that the third floor was booked by a nouveau riche academy. So it was them. Haha, hey, isn't this instructor Wei Wei? I really didn't expect that a lousy academy like the top academies would have the guts to book the entire third floor. They must have borrowed money. A slightly ear-piercing voice came from the stairs. Instructor Wei Wei, Zhou Danjin, and a few other instructors just happened to walk down the stairs. When their gazes fell on the young man who mocked them, their faces immediately darkened. Aber and the others naturally didn't recognize the man who mocked them. He sized him up and saw that the man's appearance could be considered decent, but his eyes were filled with mockery and ridicule when he looked at Instructor Wei Wei. Zhao Li. Instructor Wei Wei said in a deep voice, "You have no right to interfere in the matters of the top academies." Scram. Qiao Mu and the other students were a bit surprised. In their impression, although Instructor Wei Wei was a serious person and sometimes had a sharp tongue, he would never treat others so rudely. This man called Zhao Li in front of him seemed to have quite a grudge with Instructor Wei Wei. Zhao Li turned a deaf ear to Wei Wei's cursing. He even shrugged nonchalantly. "Fortunately, I graduated from your top-notch academy a step earlier. Otherwise, until now, I would still be... Oh, isn't this the academy's #1 genius, Duanmu Qing? TSK, you're still in the academy. Ah, right. You have to accumulate 3,000 points in a year to graduate. Otherwise, you'll have to study endlessly. How could I forget?" Zhao Li laughed loudly as he walked to Duanmu Qing's side. He placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Duanmu, have you ever thought of changing schools?" Duanmu Qing slapped his hand away. "See you tomorrow." Chapter 1949. "I'm not that familiar with you," Duanmu Qing said indifferently with a cold expression. "Ha ha ha." Zhao Li wasn't angry. He crossed his arms carelessly and cast a sidelong glance at the people from Premier Academy. "Yo, the number of students seems to have increased by quite a bit. These two junior sisters, did you just enter a top-notch academy? You too, don't be fooled by Premier Academy at such a young age. Don't think that just because it's called Premier Academy, it's the best academy in the 6 prefectures continent. Actually, this academy is at the very bottom of all the academies. Ha ha ha. Bam." When Qiao Mu saw that person walking in front of her and Qi Xianxian while bragging so much that his saliva was about to spray onto their faces, she immediately kicked out in disdain, causing that person to stumble back several steps. "Stay away from us." Aber angrily wiped her face with her sleeve. "You're dirty and smelly. You're already an adult, but you can't control your saliva. Scram. Scram scram scram." Everyone, Zhao Li's face instantly flushed red, and he flew into a rage out of humiliation. Although he didn't look very outstanding, his cultivation was very strong. In Flying Flower Academy, he was the target of many female students. When had he ever been treated like this by a girl? Was this person still a girl? Did she have any taste at all? Arbor was someone who even disdained young Master Ding, who was as beautiful as a flower, for being smelly. She even detested the two magnificent young masters of the Qin family, not to mention this average-looking man in front of her. In Miss Chow's opinion, this strange blabbermouth was even noisier than Boundless Saber in front of her and Xian Xian. He was simply a big idiot. Prince Mo silently twitched his mouth. Everyone lit a row of candles for this Zhao Li in their hearts. How pitiful! Courting death by provoking Jojo, what else could it be other than asking for a snub? You. Zhao Li felt pain in his calf from the stoic-faced girl's kick, but he couldn't bend down to rub his calf because of his pride. He could only glare hatefully at Arbor with a stiff face and say angrily, "You don't know what's good for you. This young master was just reminding you out of goodwill. I advise you not to take detours. Do you really think that a top-notch academy like this can really become a top-notch existence in the 6 prefectures? It's not up to you to decide whether or not he's a top-notch existence in the 6 prefectures. Let's see after the competition." So long-winded and full of nonsense. Where did this idiot come from? Scram! Arbor roared. Qi Xian and Little Fatty picked up their weapons at the same time and were about to rush up and smash Zhao Li. Zhao Li was so frightened that he retreated 2 steps back with a face full of panic. He felt that he simply couldn't get along with this bunch of crazy students from a top academy. Young students nowadays, why the F***ck did they act like they wanted to? I'm too lazy to talk to you. In the future you will suffer. Zhao Li's face was red with anger. He angrily flicked his sleeves and turned around. Just as he was about to step out of the door, his left leg went soft, and with a paw sound, he knelt in front of the door. His head heavily knocked against the doorframe, leaving a red mark on the spot. The teams that had gathered at the entrance and were about to leave were all shocked by his actions. Following which, they roared with laughter. A female disciple from another academy held her belly in laughter and pointed at Zhao Li, who was kneeling on the ground with a flushed face. Oh my, the little girl was right. He really is a big idiot. Chapter 1950. Senior Brother Zhao. The team leader, Gu Lioli, hurriedly ordered people to help him up and supported the limping Zhao Li out of the door. Before she left, she turned around to glare at Arbor and the others and said, "Does the top academy dare to accept Soaring Flower Academy's challenge in this competition?" "You don't have the right." Arbor coldly swept her a glance. "What right does a mere level 1 spirit master have to challenge us?" Scram! Everyone instantly couldn't laugh anymore. If the stoic-faced little girl could say that, it meant that her own strength was definitely much higher than a level 1 spirit master's. She dared to arrogantly tell a level 1 spirit master to scram. Perhaps she wouldn't do such a thing if she didn't have some skills. "You guys!" Gu Lioli was about to explode in anger. She glared hatefully at the people from the top academy and dejectedly supported Zhao Li out under everyone's gazes. A bunch of baffling people. Qi Xian pursed her lips and turned her gaze to Zhou Danjin, whose expression was unclear. "Instructor, who exactly are they?" Zhou Danjin sighed. "Let's talk as we walk." Today was the first day of the semi-finals, so it wasn't good to be late. When everyone exited Tranquil Inn, Zhou Danjin glanced at Instructor Wei Wei, who was walking at the back of the group, and then said to Arbor and the others, "Student Xiao, you must have thought that Instructor Wei Wei was targeting you from the start, right?" Arbor nodded without hesitation. "That's right, if it weren't for her good temper, this Instructor Wei Wei would have been beaten up by her 800 years ago." Zhou Danjin speechlessly glanced at this honest child. "Actually, your Instructor Wei Wei once accepted a student with pretty good talent. It's just that this student was born in an aristocratic family and had an excellent family background, so he was very arrogant. Later on, because he looked down on our shabby academy, he betrayed the academy during a very important competition. From then on, your instructor Wei Wei became much more depressed, and he became a man of few words. When we accepted students in the future, what we valued was no longer the student's talent, but their moral character. Student Xiao, your birth is too good. When you first came to our academy peak, you flew over on an ancient phoenix. Zhou Danjin glanced at her and said, "Everyone knows very well that you must have an extraordinary family background." Wait, let me interrupt. Abba could not help but interrupt. I don't have any family background. I'm just a poor child from a small family in the lower star field. Alright, you can continue. Everyone was speechless. Why did they want to laugh so badly? This was clearly a very serious topic. Teacher Zhou's mouth twitched speechlessly. Of course, he didn't want to argue with this lousy child about whether she had a strong family background or not. Instead, he continued, when you first came to our school, you had a fight with Hua Tao. Speaking of this, Hua Tao couldn't help but cover his face. Could he stop talking about such an embarrassing thing? That arrogant aura, as well as that thick aura of a young lady from a powerful family, made your instructor Wei Wei think of the student who betrayed the academy. Of course, now you already know that this person was Zhao Li, who came to provoke us just now. He's from the Shuntian Prefecture's Zhao family. The Zhao family can be considered a first-rate aristocratic family in Shuntian Prefecture. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.